Hi everyone, Azriel Knight here, and today I'm pitting 3 developers against each other to see how they affect the final image. I've done a couple experiments like this before, including agitation frequency and vigorousness, and I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to check those out. Today I'm going to be using Kodak HC-110, Ilfotec DDX, and Rodinal, which is identical chem for chem to Rodinal. I've only ever used Kodak's HC-110. I tend to find something I like and I stick to it. I'm really interested to see how these developers' characteristics show up in the negative. So first, I'm going to take the same photo along an entire length of film and then split it into 3 sections and put them all in their own developing tanks. I'm going to develop each with its own developer, and then the rest is going to be as normal. Now, if you're a seasoned photographer, then you know there's about 100 different ways to mix up your developer, and you can develop at different temperatures depending on how long. I use HC-110 Dilution B, and for the sake of this experiment, I'm going to use ratios in the other developers that call for a similar time, between 6 and 7 minutes. I'm willing to bet if you mess with the ratios and the temperatures, you could probably get very similar results from all 3 developers. But that's not what we're here to do. We're here to see their individual characteristics given really similar situations. With all my experiments, I use triax at box speed. It just keeps things consistent. Everybody's familiar with triax, and it's a good generic film to use. The only problem here is I've got all these partial rolls. There could be 5 shots left, or maybe I only took 5 shots. But I came up with the idea of weighing them against each other and just choosing the heaviest roll. Looks like an empty canister weighs 12 grams, and a full canister weighs 21 grams. Okay, this one's 17. This one's 18. That one felt like more. Nope, totally wrong. 16. So this one is 19. It's only 2 grams away from a full roll. So this is the one I want to work with today in order to make sure I get the most shots. So I want as much contrast as possible. That way I can see how the developer handles deep shadows as well as highlights. Right now it's calling for 1/50th of a second at f4.5. I'm going to go 1/45th at 4.5. Film's already loaded. Exposure's set. I've focused it, and now I'm going to set it to manual to make sure that it doesn't refocus at any point. And now I'm just going to shoot the whole roll. Looks like I got 21 shots out of that. Okay, I got all my darkroom equipment ready to go. I'm set to split up the film and put them into the tanks right there. I'm really curious to see how these films develop against each other. And if I see one and I'm just like, see you later HC, I'm off to shoot Rodinal or whatever. But yeah, let's get started. At this point, I'm just waiting for the temperature to drop to 68 Fahrenheit. Now I'm attempting to lower the temperature a little quicker by putting it in a cold bath. Let's see where we're at. Yes, that worked. Okay, I just finished fixing tank number 1. Let's take a look and see what we got. I almost forgot, I'm using Kodak Stop Bath and Ilford Fixer. Bad news, guys. I'm gonna have to start this experiment all over again. You can see that the film has been exposed to light leaks, both on the top here, and this whole area is also fogged. My guess is the camera, because I honestly thought there was some issues with it already, but it was so dark in the room I didn't think it'd be an issue. Obviously, I was an idiot for thinking that. And if I continued, it's not going to tell us anything about the contrast with the developers with the film fogged. Lucky for you and the magic of editing, the next shot is going to be, you know, almost forgot. I'm going to be using my Pentax K1000 this time with the 50mm, and I'm going to shoot at 1/30th of a second at f5.6. Okay, I'm happy to say that I'm back on track now. You can see I snagged a few images on my first strip. and that there's no fogging or light leaks. So once I finish washing this, I'm gonna move on to the Ilford developer. You know, my other problem was I wasn't wearing my lab coat. It's bad luck. One other dilemma that I've run into is that the bottle calls for Tri-X to be developed for 10 minutes at 20 Celsius. But the massive dev chart, if you're not familiar with it, it's a massive development chart, calls for 8 minutes at 20 Celsius. Now, if I had my time back, I probably would have gone with the bottle's instructions, but because I went with the massive dev's time for my Kodak Tri-X and the HC-110, I'm gonna continue to do that. So I'm gonna trust massive dev 8 minutes at 20 Celsius with a 1 to 4 concentration. This time I need to warm up my developer by about a degree before I get started. That didn't take long at all, just a couple minutes in the bath and the temperature shot up by like 6 degrees. I'm gonna have to bring it back down again. So let that be a lesson. If you're gonna warm up your developer, the bath probably only needs like a minute. Okay, moment of truth time, guys, with batch number 2. I'm just rinsing off batch number 2 now, and it's looking pretty good. I mean, I'm not gonna know exactly what's different until I do a true side-by-side comparison, but just eyeballing it, I feel like this version has more contrast. As well, I'm noticing a little bit more detail in the highlights. Once this is clean and hung, I'm gonna move on to the Blazonol. Okay, next up and final on the list is Blazonol. And like I mentioned before, this is literally rebottled Rodinal. Rebottled, rebranded Rodinal. It is exactly the same. For Blazonol, we're looking at a concentration of 1 to 25. Again, it's 20 Celsius and the time is, I'm not sure, I'll have to check the time. If I remember correctly, it's 7 minutes. My camera here is about to die, so I'll see you on the other end of this development. Okie dokie. I got the 3 strips of film drying here. Here's the HC-110, here's the Ilfotec DDX, and the Rodinal, or Blazonol. So I'm gonna hang these to dry now, after which we'll go to the light table and physically look at the negative to see what the differences are, and then after that we'll scan them in and we'll see what we can work with. Okay, everything turned out great. There weren't any issues this time around that I can see. I let the film dry for, I want to say 5 or 6 hours. And now we have the HC-110, the DDX, and the Blazonol. Looking at it from a distance, I do see the most difference between Rodinal and HC-110. I'm not seeing as much difference between the DDX and the 110, but we're gonna get even closer with the loop. So I'm gonna focus on the same part of the frame for each negative. This is the Rodinal. This is the DDX. And this is the HC-110. I'm still fascinated by how similar DDX and 110 are so far. I really feel like I'm not gonna see too much more difference until I get it on the scanner. When you're trying to look at simply the negative and nothing else, the scanner can be your best friend or your worst enemy. For that reason, I cut a single negative from each strip and place it on the scanner beside each other. I have to make sure that I don't lose track of these negatives. What I've done here is cut a little section out of the bottom to remind me that this is the HC-110. Here's a small cut on the right corner to indicate the DDX, and no cut at all for the Rodinal. When I scan for comparison purposes, I want to make sure that everything is turned off, and with my scanner that's not easy. If I do 3 separate scans, I can't know for sure if there's an exposure difference between them. That's why I cut an individual negative out and scan them together. I have an 8-year-old scanner, so we're not going to be comparing grain or anything, but it will allow us to focus in a little bit. I'm impressed on how close DDX and HC-110 were. If it weren't for DDX's low concentration, I'd consider making a switch because I honestly like the results better. I could totally see why people like Rodinal. It's punchy, a very striking image before you even apply any edits. Having a dilution of 1:25 makes it appealing to the wallet as well. There are a ton of you who are way better at analyzing negatives than me, or maybe you just see something I don't. I'd love to know your thoughts. Also, what should I do for my next experiment? Let me know those in the comments below. Episodes like this are made possible by my patrons on Patreon. My patrons enjoy, among other things, early access to my videos. I have a Twitch account. The account is brand new, it's a work in progress, and I'm just getting my feet wet, but I hope you'll check it out. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and until next time, stay classic.